Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and get started. If you get kicked out, get back in. If you come in late, please still get in. So these questions are both from some of the things that we talked about, but also from your readings. So pop culture is one of the things that we talked about in class. I don't think we specifically listed these, but so soap operas are more of the type that are pop culture, because if you think of things like symphonies, operas, ballet, those tend to be more what we think of as like classic culture, particularly like European classic. Obviously, if you go elsewhere, there's different types of classical culture, like the Beijing opera and stuff like that. But typically soap operas and things like Marvel movies, basically daytime television, all tend to be pop culture. Okay, so this question is on the slide. Oh, I might have to extend these times. Yeah, so intercultural friendships can help us break stereotypes. You know, obviously not everyone is a walking stereotype, so just because someone, you know, wears a colorful Hawaiian shirt or has their nails painted does not mean that they are XYZ. Or just because a woman has short hair does not mean that she is a lesbian, or just because someone dresses in a certain way does not mean that they are part of XYZ group. So, and when we actually talk to people and get to know them, we learn about those stereotypes and understand that, you know, these are not true for everyone. Nick has taken the lead. So, restrained conflict style. So we also talked about conflict. So what would be true for someone who uses a more emotionally restrained conflict style? This one is also wordy. I might have to extend the time on it too. Yes, they are uncomfortable with emotional expression and think that emotional expressions may hurt people. So let me just, I wish there was like settings in here that I could just go through and fix that. But yeah, so if we remember, we have conflict styles of direct, indirect, expressive, and restrained. So people who are emotionally restrained in conflict, they tend to be uncomfortable with a lot of emotion shown because they think if you're showing too much emotion, you may hurt your conversation partner. And they do think it is very important to control and internalize those feelings during conflict so that they aren't unintentionally hurting someone else. If you are emotionally expressive, you think that this outward display of emotion means that you care and you're trying to show your conversation partner that you are invested in this and that you care about the particular issue. I wonder if I can like pause it. So what kind of conflict do they have? If it's a disagreement about how to use money. Gesundheit. Allergies are kicking everybody's butts this week.
My allergies also just get really bad during the season.
Curse you, Cotton. Yeah, so it is a conflict of interest. So they have different ideas about what action like should be taken. Should we go on vacation or should we save this money? Because they're both interested in different things. If it was a value conflict, I think we actually have an example of a value conflict in here, so I'll just explain it then. But affective would be like emotional conflict. So, one-sided love, that would be an affective conflict because their emotions are not in sync. And then cognitive conflict is the conflict on your perception of a certain event, basically. Kasaya is on fire. Oh, another one of these freaking long ones. So what kind of approach to conflict is this person using? Very precise language and feels it's important to say what is on her mind. Yeah, so it is direct. So she says what's on her mind. It didn't tell us anything about her emotional state, but just said she wants to handle the conflict and say what is on her mind. So using precise language to say this is the issue. Tara has stolen the lead from you, Nick. Why was that only like 5 seconds? I don't know. So your perceived or real incompatibility of goals, values, expectations, processes, or outcomes between two or more independent parties is known as conflict. So conflict is your perceived or real incompatibility of something. It might be goals, it might be different values, it might be different expectations, or preferred outcomes. So conflict, perceived or real incompatibility of goals. Nick, working your way back up to first. This one, I believe, was in one of our readings rather than what we talked about in class. So take your best guess. So when you're looking at demographics of the readership or watchership, I guess, the audience of a particular media, in this case a magazine, we're looking at like reader profile. So who is the average person that we're looking at? So in this class, we have 3 women and 3 men. So, our average, we're just going to go with our average, and here's a woman because I'm the oldest and I say so. But, what is the average age? We could say, okay, our average age in this classroom is probably 20 or so. And our average income, you guys are all college kids, so our average income is probably going to be like, closer to the bottom. So that would be our average reader profile of a magazine would be a woman at the age of 20 with low income. Or if we were in a classroom full of men who were, between the ages of 25 and 30, who most of them were married, that's going to be our profile of our person to say, okay, what kind of articles do we need to write to appeal to this audience of married men between the ages of 25 and 30? What kind of TV shows do we need to produce to make sure that women the age of 20 who have a lower income are watching this television show? Well, one, we probably want to have Sebastian Stan in it, right? Okay, that joke fell flat. Anyways, no one's seen the new Falcon and Winter Soldier? Okay. So what would be true about value conflict? If the conflict is between your values. Yeah, so value conflict is different ideologies. So what do they value? So if we look at our picture of former President Trump and former President Obama, you know, they had different ideologies. They had a value conflict. They valued different things. So they had different ideologies. This one becomes aware that your feelings and emotions are incompatible. That is effective conflict. So feelings and emotions are effective conflict. Preferred outcome might be a conflict of interest, and the course of action, it could depend. Another long one, guys. This was also in our readings, pretty sure. But either way, I'm going to tell you the right answer after you guess. So good job when you guessed it, because basically the words kind of mean what you think they mean. So you have these, I'm not sure what the best way to describe them would be. Not like personalities, but when you are put into a new intercultural situation, you can be obviously competent or incompetent in that situation, right? And that will either be conscious or unconscious. So in this case of Matt talking to someone from Rwanda, things went well. He didn't have to think about it too hard. So he didn't have to think about it too hard, so it's unconscious and it went well, so he was competent. If it was unconscious, incompetent, he didn't think about it too hard, he may not have pursued it at all, and it didn't go very well. Maybe he's just a super awkward taco in general, and it's just like, well, that we've all had that where we're just like, that did not go well. Conscious competence would be you are attempting or you have practiced and therefore you are efficient at what you're doing. So like if you have been trained at work to work with your clients from China, then you have trained, so it's conscious and you are competent because you are effective. Or you're conscious incompetence where you're basically kind of like a troll, right? I know what I could be doing, but I'm just not. Dun, dun, dun. Please don't be that way, but I mean, I guess you do you. You're just saying, I'm going to do that next time. Okay, so another one about competence or incompetence. So Suzette is methodical and analytical while preparing. She pays attention and tries to learn as much as she can before so that she can be efficient. Yes, so she is consciously attempting to be a competent communicator. Nice job, guys. On fire. Okay, so a theme in intercultural relationships where people have found they are different in some ways, but alike in others. Yeah, so the theme of similarity. So no matter who you talk to from somewhere in the world, you will have things that are similar about you. You know, we could pull anyone from anywhere and say, okay, well, you know, in this example, attitude about the role of religion in everyday life. You know, there's probably some people in here who have a very similar attitude about the role of religion and how they behave daily based on that as people from every single other country in the entire world, even if it is a different religion that they believe in. Or their role of family or a value of family. So similarity, so how people from different backgrounds can have things that are alike, even if they are not the same. Sweet, we got a couple new people on the board. So what is not true about the benefits of intercultural relationships? So what is not true? Okay, so they may teach us something about history, so that is true, but it is false that they don't last as long as same culture relationships. You know, your friendships from people from different cultures can last as long, if not longer, as the ones with the people that you're around every day. Because maybe you found one day that like your friends that you grew up with in high school or middle school, they might be the same culture as you, but maybe they fade off after a couple years when you're no longer immediately around each other. But that friend that you made on that one trip that you took over to Jamaica or whatever, maybe you still talk to them 2 decades later. So, and this is not just limited to romantic relationships. It can be friendships. It can be, you know, work relationships, any kind of relationship. Tara's still on fire, but Nick, you're closing in. So when we're looking for someone who has different personality traits that help match up with ours.
Oh, no.
You're just like, boom, and then they're like, oh.
Yeah, it's like, oh, no. No.
Yeah, so we're looking at complementary relationships when they have different personality traits that help work with ours. So an example of this would be like in class. How many of you guys are in a math class right now? Okay, one. Okay, so Alexis, if you knew that there was someone in your class who was really good at math, if you weren't, would you go sit next to them and strike up a friendship? That is a perfect example of complementary relationship, because they complement you with, okay, I'm not as great at math, this person's really good, we're going to strike up a friendship so we can help each other, because maybe they're not as good with English or whatever, and you're like, I can help you with that if you help me with math. Or like in romantic relationships, maybe you pick someone who complements something else. So maybe you're like, for me, I really hate to mop. I will sweep the house all day, but God forbid you tell me to go mop. So maybe I'm like, okay, I want to live with someone who likes to mop so that I can do the sweeping and they can do the mopping. Or I really hate to wash utensils. I'm going to get someone who doesn't mind washing utensils. You know, or friendships. So obviously, if there's too much difference, then that might cause some tension elsewhere. But if you can work together to build something better because you both have a slightly different skill set, then, you know, that is that good complementarity. So once again, conflict style. So this person thinks it's better to get angry and show their feelings rather than suppress, so that her partner knows that she really cares about the issue. Yes, so she is emotionally expressive in order to show it's like, hey, husband, I care about this issue, therefore we need to do something about it. And she may be direct or indirect, we can't tell just based on that information. But when it just says she thinks it's better to get angry or to show emotion rather than to hide or suppress her feelings. So she is expressive. And Kasaya is on fire. So this is cultural imperialism, which we talked a little bit about in pop culture. So what is true about cultural imperialism? Yeah, I do need to extend some of the times on these guys. I'm sorry, like it just auto set to like 20 seconds.
It didn't let me answer it.
It's out to get you. Thought you were too close to the top. No. But cultural imperialism refers to the domination achieved through the spreading of pop culture products. So I think our example when we talked about pop culture was like the McDonaldization or whatever, that all these countries over in the Middle East and Africa, they're all getting these McDonald's in, which is an American cultural product. And it's causing obesity, it's causing heart disease over there. But it's becoming more dominant because of our pop culture products, and then now all these American health issues are showing up over there. Or like Hollywood. So Hollywood movies spread like fire as long as they're good. We're not going to talk about some of the terrible ones. But that gives an idea about American culture and American values to everywhere that it plays and everyone who buys it. So it refers to the domination achieved through the spreading of pop culture products. So this is just more like colonialism in general, to an extent, but it's mainly just the domination achieved through pop culture products. So which is true about pop culture and different stereotypes? Or what is the most true? Fair enough, I guess. But out of these, the most true, or basically, the answer is, it helps people reinforce existing stereotypes. So the media, it likes the status quo, right? It does. It likes to keep making money and doing what it's been doing because that's what makes it money. So it reinforces stereotypes that we believe in, whether they are positive or negative. Yes, sometimes we do unconsciously accept stereotypes, but typically they are not new stereotypes. If it's a new stereotype, we're not just going to accept that because we're like, where did this came out of left field? Like, what the heck? So, but yeah, pop culture does help stereotypes persist by reinforcing them. And some people do try to resist stereotypes projected by pop culture, but it's hard because it's just so pervasive. But it does help reinforce existing stereotypes. So traditional rituals and traditions that maintain group identity. So we have pop culture and then this type of culture. Yeah, so we have pop culture and folk culture. So if you think about it like folk arts and crafts, traditional dances, traditional dress, that tends to be referred to as folk culture, not as commodified, while pop culture is the thing that they can really sell. So pop culture helps to allow marginalized social groups to express themselves typically in innovative, non-mainstream ways. Because if you think about some of the things that have become pop culture that more marginalized groups can use to get their point across, things like TikTok, where anyone can use, different movies where they're highlighting different actors, like Black Panther. That was a huge thing in pop culture. But how many times have we had like a Black superhero that people are like, heck yeah, I'm gonna go see Black Panther, and where the cast is like pretty much all people of color. This one, not really. So it says pop culture, when industrialized, can be described in terms of buying and selling commodities. It's hard to buy and sell culture. You can spread culture, but culture isn't really a commodity because it doesn't like end.
Yeah.
So, late Gary is on fire. Last two questions. So cultural texts. So not like text on your phone. A text can be any sort of artifact, basically. Yeah. So cultural texts are any type of artifact that help convey norms, values, or beliefs. So if you have a group of people that dresses in a certain way, that could be a cultural text because they are following that script of what is appropriate to do. Or if it shows the norms, so the greeting norms could potentially be like a cultural text. Wedding rings, it's an artifact because it shows like the norms of society. So like here in the US, we wear our wedding rings on our left ring finger. In like Russia and stuff, they wear it on the right. But those are different examples of cultural texts. Kimberly is on fire. So last question, and it's one of those slide ones that's probably going to go too fast. But it's not a bad question to end on. Yeah. So one of the challenges in intercultural relationships, of some way, shape, or form, is that people do have different beliefs and attitudes and perceptions that we may not share. And I can't just walk up to tell Caleb, it's like, hey, the way that you believe in the world is wrong, right? Because that's not really the way that things should work. So it's one of those things like, well, I may not agree with Caleb that, the flying spaghetti monster, blah, 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 whatever. But it's like, he has the right to believe in that. So, if that's part of your culture, then you do you, but don't try to tell me what to do. So just affirming another's cultural identity, which can be really hard, especially if we have really deeply held beliefs that people might want to share. We just have to make sure that it's like, hey, are we trying to force our way of living and being on other people? Or are we just saying, hey, this is what I do? And you're welcome to join if you want, but you do you. So we're gonna skip the podium. So nice job, guys. Oh, no, okay. So some of these questions to review. So a true statement about people who use a restrained conflict style. So they are uncomfortable with emotional expression and think that expression like that may hurt or harm people. Okay, so demographic details with like magazine readership. If they're reading, it's reader profiles. If it's something like Netflix or whatever, it might be something like watcher profiles. But demographics of a magazine, reader profiles. Pop culture would be things like soap operas or other popular movies, daytime television, Maori, Judge Judy. Thank you. I'm trying to think of what others on like daytime TV. Jeopardy. Wait, yes, Jeopardy. What is true about pop culture? It can allow marginalized social groups to express themselves in innovative, non-mainstream ways. So, and help get their views out. So conflict is the perceived or real incompatibility of goals, values, expectations, processes, or outcomes between two or more parties. So pop culture and stereotypes. It helps reinforce existing stereotypes, even if it does not introduce new ones. And value conflict occurs when people have differing ideologies or different sets of values and is typically more serious. If you think about it, like religious conflict is value conflict, and we have fought many, many wars over that. So, but it could also be political ideologies, which people also get very heated about. It could be the, differences on raising children. So it just depends, but it's different ideologies and it must be serious. Okay. So any questions with that? And I will tell you that I literally pretty much just copy and pasted the questions from the test and put it into here. I mean, the words are a little different, obviously, because I only have like so much space on here. But